Welcome to the fourth edition of Meet Your Neighborhood Police. Today we have in conversation Barry Thomas. He is the manager for TCHC, which is Toronto Community Housing, with our two favorite police officers, Mircha Biga and Farzad Gupti. So take a look.
Welcome to another episode of Meet Your Neighborhood Policing. My name is Mircha Biga, one of the neighborhood officers in Regent Park. I have here my partner Farzad Gupti. I'm a special guest, Barry Thomas, operating unit manager for Toronto Community Housing for a long time in Regent Park. Barry, thank you so much for joining us today. What can you tell us, please? What was your first impression of the neighborhood officer program, and how did that change over time?
First, it's very nice to be back with you. And I remember the first day that I was introduced to the neighborhood officers, and in particular to Farzad sitting next to me here. He came into my office on an assault complaint, and I thought he was going to arrest me. But as you can see, that didn't go that way. The neighborhood officer program at that stage, and I'm now talking about 2014, 2013, was new, and we were very skeptical about it because it looked like it was once more flavor of the month. It wasn't until I got to know you and know Farzad that we began to understand what were the special kinds of ways we needed to deal with the tenants in Regent Park. My primary preoccupation as the landlord was that my tenants are treated properly. The tenants' primary preoccupation was that the police in Toronto and in Regent Park treat them differentially. And that it's just going to be a short-term project. What I liked about the program was that it was very clear that you were here for the long term, that you were here to get to know the community, that you were not parking your police responsibilities, but not ignoring the community needs, the feelings in the community, and in particular the fact that this is a community with a long history of police antipathy. In other words, there wasn't a lot of trust. And in order for this to work, I was very clear we needed to build trust first. And that's the part that I really began to appreciate as I began to watch how you worked with our tenants, how you worked with the people I introduced you to, and how you built that trust over time.
Thank you so much, and we really appreciate your assistance. This program would not be as successful as it is without your help. You are instrumental in building and helping build these relationships with the tenants, with the other stakeholders, because we became to trust you and to appreciate what you're doing, and you have such connection with everybody in Regent Park and know everybody, and everybody gets to appreciate you, and that was a huge step forward for our program in order to be successful. Now, Barry, if I may again ask you another question. What aspect of the program do you appreciate the most, and where does it still need improvement?
I mentioned the trust building part in the last question. I will answer it in more detail, but more improvement is required in continuity of the way you and Farzad work. In other words, when I have a tenancy that's problematic, for example, a large family with one kid who's going onto the wrong side, has the potential to go onto the wrong side, you don't just come along and arrest the problem away. You go, you knock on the door, you listen to what we have to say, you listen to what the community safety unit has to say, you listen to what the community development team people have to say, you listen to what the neighbors say, you listen to what the mother and the father has to say, and then you approach the problem, and we approach the problem as a team. arresting and evicting was never the intent or the anticipated outcome. It was healing the families and healing the community that this community policing was all about. And that's why it's successful. So to answer the other part of the question, it needs to be more consistently taught and developed and demonstrated across 51 division, but also across Toronto. The principles of community policing is premised on trust. It's not premised on might and fight and flight.
Well, as we all know, one of the main foundings of the Transformational Task Force was that the whole entire city is going to be policed this way. Like a neighborhood officer program is the future of policing in Toronto. And we definitely came to appreciate this program, the value of it, working directly with the people, working in the community, and seeing how valuable the program is. And we think it's an amazing program to have developed and spread throughout the whole entire city. But we also appreciate the consistency of having the same officers in a certain neighborhood for a longer period of time, because it takes time, obviously, to build this trust and relationship with the community.
In one part, in terms of the Transformational Task Force, it's inevitable. The policing model was built in 1959. 1957. It needs to change. The changes, however, need to incorporate the core principles of community policing. It's communities that are policed by people who understand what the community is and who are of those communities. Even if the model these days is, police live outside the city and come to work in the city. They need to know who lives in the city. They need to be comfortable with them. And what I appreciated with this is there's one particular story that always stands out where we had a shooting about 3 or 4 years ago. And we had all the intelligence, we had all the information, but the perpetrator, the guy who did the shooting, was in hiding. And the mother of that particular youth called you when you were off duty to go and effect the arrest. I remember the story and how it played out, and that you had to come in on off duty and get permission from the unit, your sergeant, to go and do there. What that speaks to is that there is a level of comfort, there's a level of trust, and that took at least 3 or 4 years to build before we got to that stage. So, if you can go and take a gunman off the street without uniforms on and his mother telling you where it is, the consequences for that kind of policing is deep. It's really what the model of this transformational task force is looking for. Those are the kinds of stories, those are the kinds of teachable moments that we need to embellish and people need to understand. It's not just a remoteness, a high-tech thing. Yes, we will use all our technology at our disposal. That's the way of the world, and that's the way we live today. But people manage the technology. Technology doesn't manage people.
Absolutely. You're right.
Now, one thing I wanted to mention is that I know we're doing all the serious talk about, policing and, the relationships and all that. So, in particular, the relationships that we're building, it's going far and above just the relationship having with stakeholders and some of the residents. Our relationship is actually going into more like a friendship. And we find it that we find a privilege not only to be here, but to build up on this friendship to the point where when we're coming to work now, we don't feel like we're coming to work. We feel like we're coming to our second home in a sense, because people like yourself have opened up the doors for us where we feel like we belong and we're part of this community. and it almost feels like a second family to us. And it really doesn't feel like, we're coming just 9 to 5 and then punching in and punching out, and we're not wanting to hear anything else. We often now get phone calls now, even after when we finish work, and we communicate even when we're not working. So, and that makes it even more encouraging for us because of likes of you, that we want to be more encouraged to do what we're doing on a daily basis, and that is to build a relationship, and from those relationships make friendship. And I think that's very important. And thanks to you and all the people in Regent Park, we really appreciate that.
One closing remark is that people who know me understand that I'm originally from South Africa, and my upbringing in South Africa was one that didn't necessarily see me at this stage and this advanced age in my life sitting on a TV show next to 2 policemen. That's not what my worldview was when I came here in 1975. It's very ironic that not only do I sit here and work with people like you in a very comfortable way every day, I work with you in this way where the trust goes into the people who I am charged with looking after and housing, and knowing that if you go in, I can vouch for the kind of behavior that comes out of it without thinking about it. This is what anti-racist policing, diversity in policing is all about. This is what human policing is about. Then you are from where?
I was smiling when you told me you're sitting here from South Africa with another guy from Iran, with another guy from Romania, policing Regent Park. But then Regent Park is not what Regent Park used to be a long time ago.
Yes.
There are people from Asia, from Africa, from South
Yes.
America, from
Yes.
Europe.
Yes.
So this is the perfect model.
We as you say, we do this as work, but then we start seeing the products of our work on the international stage in terms of the young boys I don't want to mention who are out there doing their hip hop stuff. We talk about it in terms of the athletic stars that come from here. We talk about it in terms of the former vice principal of Nelson Mandela Park School, and the people that we watch and grow, and then we get paid for it on top of it.
It's very true. What you were saying just a couple of minutes ago reminds me of a retirement party we went to at Kiwani's Boys and Girls Club. He was a youth worker, very dear to us, became our friend as well. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about, growing up in Regent Park and having the mistrust of the police and, mm-hmm. that perception of the police. He said never in a million years he would have thought that he would invite 2 officers, to his retirement party, and as friends,
yes.
which speaks volume.
Your former Sergeant Chu, for example. I always picture this little Chinese lady on the bike program with the Muslim girls in their hijabs and stuff going down the street on a Sunday afternoon. Who would have thought that that's what a sergeant in the Toronto Police Force does? And where are those girls now? How do they behave? How do they look at the police? This is what this investment in community policing is all about.
Well, we were extremely fortunate to have this position, and I was fortunate to work with you, and obviously very fortunate to have a partner like Farzad. And this is a dream. It was not work, exactly what he was saying. And this is also for the young viewers. If you find a job that you like and enjoy so much, it doesn't feel like you're working, because you come happy to work and you go happy at home. Thank you so much for making time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. Thank you so much for your input, and we'll continue our
Merche, Farzad, keep doing your jobs. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
It.
Thank you. Till next time.
This is the question and answer part of our program. We received a couple questions from our audience. First question is saying, you guys seem to have a very friendly relationship. Do you think other neighborhoods can build this kind of collaboration? What do you think?
Well, if I may answer, our whole basis of our program comes down to building relationships and friendships. And that's what we just, prior to our break there, we did speak about friendship. And I think every community across the city, it's important that, you know, the main focus would be about not only making the relationships, but evolve from those relationships into friendships, because only in that kind of a environment diagram where you can have a dialogue where you can achieve some of those goals that may be there for in order to make the improvement in that community, whatever that may be. So absolutely, relationships and friendship are a top priority, because without that we will not have the same dialogue, we won't have the same trust.
If I may just add to what Farza was saying, obviously a friend relationship can only be built, you know, when you have respect for one another, when you have trust in one another, and this is the main goal. And that's why prior we were talking about having the right personality for this program. You cannot be a neighborhood officer if you don't have the proper understanding of the core values that are required for this position. You know, taking your time to listen to people's concerns, and respecting everybody, and then you know, without judging, and then trying to help as much as you can. Our second question is reading, you came from different cultures and obviously have great friendships. In our world, with growing racial tensions worldwide, what can you give in terms of advice for building bridges with one another? Barry?
You know, there's an old Aboriginal saying, always remember why God gave you 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 2 nostrils, and just 1 mouth. You need to listen, look, and smell twice as much as you talk. And you have to do that with integrity. You have to do, people feel that. Everybody has a gut reaction. Disingenuousness oozes out of the disingenuous person. People who are genuine, no matter if you can't speak the language, people know you are being honest. So honesty, integrity, and respect, mutual respect. Somebody once said to me, there's another old saying that says, you know, treat people the way you want to be treated. Yes, I have always lived by that. But in fact, it's actually more than that. Treat people the way they want to be treated. So the example in this community is Muslim women don't shake hands. And in a European Western culture, it's a sign of respect to shake hands. So we need to treat Muslim women not the way we want to be treated, the way they want to be treated, by respecting the fact that in their culture, they don't shake hands, and respecting the fact that in our culture, we don't dominate our culture and subjugate our culture on everybody.
One last I like to add on everything. I remember, and that's very powerful to state with me up to this moment, when Barry had the little getaway party when he took upon a different office recently. He said something very powerful. Somebody asked him, you know, how do you get along with everybody in the community? How do you make so many friends? How are you respected the way they are respected? And his answer was, I smile to people and I shake their hand. I look in their eyes, and that disarms them. That's a very powerful message to everybody there. When we're friendly, when we are having that opening and smiling and being friendly, it's most likely that the response is going to be friendly, and it's going to be a positive relationship.
Yeah. No, in another life, I worked with an old retired policeman who retired as a sergeant. His name is Keith Wilshire. He must be about 80 now. But he told me that you can arrest somebody as a policeman without dehumanizing them. And the balance of doing that is a tricky business. But the way you do it, and you do it right, is that's when you leave the scene with respect.
Very true. And I just wanted to mention, we're talking about coming from different cultural background in regards to the question, And as we spoke in previous episodes, we all come from different countries. And when I first came here, I was a teenager, and I couldn't speak the language at all. I couldn't speak English. But the two things that I did know is hello, how are you? And it's amazing how far that got me into where I was going. And to this day, I still true to that, because when you just greet someone and you ask them how they are, right there, you're breaking down a lot of barriers, and you're allowing people to know that it's okay to speak, and you're not there for any other reason but just to say hi. And that's very important. You know, we have to have that the human touch and keep that close to our heart. And that's something that we would like to encourage everyone to do. So when you see an individual, you see a police officer, you see a kid, just be positive, and just you can just say hello and hi, and you'll see, just like what Barry said, how by just saying hello, how you can just change everything. You can change somebody's mood that way, and that's very important. So that's what we like to encourage.
So the message of today's episode is be good to one another, be friendly, be respectful, and humble. And please get your questions coming our way. We'll see you next time. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for watching the 4th edition of Meet Your Neighborhood Police, in conversation with Barry Thomas from TCHC and our 2 favorite police officers.